and we'll just give a few more minutes for people to show up. Who's that? Who's? That was Valerie. So if you're in a noisy place, I can mute you from here. And then if you start talking, just be aware that you may have been muted to keep the audio possible. Okay.
Like
that. Misha, you don't even have a microphone over here. Oh, there you go. Okay, so welcome everyone to the September edition of the Open Edx Community Hangout, which is not being served over Hangouts. As always, we're interested to hear what you'd like to get out of these gatherings. We've got a few different Hangouts on a regularly scheduled basis at this point, and they're all very flexible, and so we're interested to know what you'd like to do at the time. If you want to propose topics or be a topic or ask us to find content that you'd like to hear about in these Hangouts, just get in touch. You can send the community managers an email at oscm@edx.org, and we'd be glad to hear your thoughts about the process. To kick us off, Jeremy, are you ready to talk?
Yeah, go ahead and mute yourself. Okay, so update on the incremental improvements project. For those of you who haven't heard this spiel before, the idea behind incremental improvements is that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done on the Open Edx platform that we've been having trouble making time to do here within Edx. It benefits the entire Open Edx community, and a lot of them are relatively small tasks that don't require a lot of context about the Open Edx software, just more standard Python or JavaScript development skills, etc. So we have an existing epic for trying to get Edx platform upgraded to Python 3. There's a lot of tasks in there already for doing that. And we've been encouraging people who are either new developers looking to get started on an open source project or new hires of Edx or other companies in the Open Edx ecosystem to tackle these tickets as a way of getting started figuring out the contribution process to Open Edx and separating that from any problems that may come up trying to do a larger code contribution. So you can understand the process first, and then if you want to make a bigger contribution later, you already know how to do that part. 5 of these tickets have already been completed. There are 2 or 3 more that are pretty close to being closed out. We welcome other people to help. There is an Open Edx proposal about this, which is just about to be merged, and there'll be an announcement and blog post about that shortly. And so any questions about that, let me know, or there's some information in the OAuth about appropriate channels to direct discussion about that, and would love to make this process work for everyone and actually get all these little tasks out of the way and get more people contributing to the project.
Anyone have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Switch back. So just to reiterate what Jeremy said, the little tickets that are in there are the kinds of things that is no one's first choice, like, ooh, I'm going to get up in the morning and upgrade that third-party library to the latest version. But if we put it off too long, it's a really pain to get going later. And so the more we can just let that be a constant drip of simple changes rather than a huge headache later on, the better off we're all going to be. And maybe you want to take a break from the hard thinking of the interesting work and just know that you've made some good progress in the world. So that's a place to find simple things to do. Okay, so update on the conference. So the conference, as you know, the Open Edx Conference is happening at the end of March in San Diego. The University of California at San Diego is going to host us. They are super excited to have us there. They are already amazing partners to help this conference grow and be bigger than it was before and be really great. San Diego is an amazing place. Apparently we can just have stuff outdoors because the weather is always amazing, which coming from Boston, I can't quite wrap my head around, but I'm looking forward to it. One thing to note about the conference, because it's in March, which is 2 months earlier than it was last year, and it's already September, when we open the call for proposals for talks, which we're planning to do in early October, it's going to be a fairly short window. We may have, for instance, I think it's going to be 5 weeks between opening the call for proposals, closing the call for proposals. So you should get started thinking now about what you might like to propose as a talk for the conference, because it's going to be a fairly compressed process. I apologize for that. It'd be better if we had opened it already, but we need to get a few other things going before we can do that. And then we're going to be a little crunched ourselves to go through the proposals. But I'm giving you a heads up now because I know sometimes you don't start thinking about these things until the CFP is open and you need some time to work on it or mull over some ideas. So start that process now so that you can get your best proposals in when the CFP actually does open. Any other questions? The form of the conference is going to be roughly like it was last year, tutorials on Tuesday, 2 days of plenaries and breakouts on Wednesday and Thursday, and then a developer summit on Friday. And the website is already up with a teaser image, I think, or the save the date kind of image. So con.openedx.org will give you the details if you need to start, blocking out your calendar or preparing for travel or whatever it is you need to do. A more detailed website and open registration will happen in the next few weeks. Any questions, comments about the conference? Who's going to the conference? Everyone? I'm guessing if you're on this, you're going to plan to go to the conference. I expect to see all of you there. John's waving at least. Okay. Sure. Good. Yeah, of course. Of course. Everyone can mute to cheer for the conference. Unmute to cheer for the conference now if you want.
We wouldn't miss it.
I wouldn't miss it, of course not. All right. Nimisha, talking about the architecture hangout. Let me...
Hey, everyone. Okay. Hey, everyone. Great. So we've been having these monthly community hangouts, which has been awesome. And I believe the ops team has also been doing monthly hangouts. So we wanted to follow suit and do an architecture monthly hangout as well, if we think that this would be very useful to the community. So actually, so whoever is online today, you guys get to vote on this. First of all, the question is, would a monthly architecture hangout be useful? And but what would an architecture hangout even look like? Does it make sense for it to be like question and answers around anything related to Open Edx architecture? Does it make sense for it to be a chance for us to review and discuss OEPs, Open Edx proposals that are in that have been written and out for review? So if we can just spend maybe like a few minutes where I'll like whoever wants to just share their thoughts on that, that would allow me to figure out like how to schedule these and what would be most useful for us as a community. So anyone want to go first?
I would like to volunteer John Baldwin.
Wait, well, Omar is talking, but Omar might be muted.
Yeah, I would like to volunteer John Baldwin.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Wait, volunteer me for what?
For answering Nimisha's question.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, Omar.
No, I would like John Baldwin to participate. I think, I don't know, I'm just guessing, without prior knowledge, that he usually has a great ideas regarding that, because he's been working with figures lately, and that's a big initiative. So, and sorry, John, for volunteering you out of thin here, but yeah,
Well,
feel free to say no.
so sorry, I've been multitasking, working on my sprint review while participating in the meeting. So, Nimisha, you were mentioning, and I apologize, mentioning an architectural regular meetup.
Yeah, so we were thinking like an online hangout focused more on architecture. The community hangouts that we're doing here right now are, chance for us to, of course, also get together. But it's also a chance for people to share thoughts on different things. The architecture hangout could be a place for us to dive a little bit deeper on architecture-related topics. One form that it could take is where we choose one topic for that hour and we dive really deep on it. Another form that it could be is that we open up the platform for question and answers, things that perhaps like over Slack, we haven't done good justice on a particular topic, and we want to be able to talk it out in real time. So these are some ideas. I'm looking to see what would be most useful to the community. So looking for feedback there.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to participate in that.
Okay. Erin is suggesting maybe we can alternate by month. That's also a great idea. So we can try that.
Thanks. Yeah, I was thinking it would be like with the Python meetups in Boston, where we have there's a project night, and then there's there's talks so you'd have the overview, which I think are useful, like for sure a survey of a couple different things, open OEPs. Then the deep dive would be really nice, I think, for a lot of us to really, because so often I think we try to have those conversations. They work well in the OEPs, but if we try to have it in Slack, it works okay to a point, but it's not as focused, and there's all this other noise coming in. So I think it'd be great to try both.
Okay, that sounds great. So I was thinking like next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to be our first one, because that's not the week that we do the community hangout and not the week that we do the DevOps hangout. So does that seem fine for everybody? And one possibility as an initial topic could be block store, or it could also be Edx figures, because Omar mentioned that. So block store is there is a very vanilla OAuth right now, and the documents around that are in multiple places. But Dave Ormsby actually, who is working primarily focused on Blockster from the Edx side right now, has a good presentation where he can go into some of the details for people. So that is something that we could also take on as a first agenda. Feel free to post in your chat, because I don't want to take up more time on this now, but maybe on your chat, like if you guys have thoughts on what the first topic could be as our guinea pig architecture hangout.
I mean, if he's got Blockstore material ready, then I think that would be great to start it off.
Okay, yeah, he does. He has that ready. So, okay. I just voluntold him, but I did tell him before this meeting, so he does know it's coming. Okay, sounds good.
I have one concern, Nimisha.
Yeah.
That it's I mean, not to say that this is not to reduce the value of such meeting, but there's still the inevitable fact that most of the community are actually living like in the past of OpenEdX. For example, like we are pinned to a certain release. So how do you think we can, I mean, do you have like any ideas how can we make this meetup more useful for both of us, considering that huge lag?
So meaning people who are still at previous named releases and may not yet have gotten a chance to make use of the new features that are in is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, like if I upgraded today to Howdern, like today, yes, the meetup would, like, the next time that I'm gonna use the materials that we'll get out of such architectural meeting is probably like next 6 months from now, whereas at like Edx or whoever who lives off master, it would be like as soon as possible. This is it's regardless whether I'm like on which named release on, as long as I'm on a named release, that's going to be something. I mean, I have the same problem with my current PRs that I'm doing right now. it's just like that. I mean, when I do something, I would love it if I can like ship it right now, except that I usually can't. Even if it's merged, even like if it's trial, because I'm living off a named release and I have to do some certain patches, and this is architectural changes we're talking about. So it can have like a, I don't know, it's on the things that you can't usually cherry pick, right?
Yeah. So I'm hearing two things there. So one is I will say that for Blockstore, for instance, even Edx is not going to be able to make use of and take advantage of it for another year or so, I will say. There is the Lab Exchange initiative that you guys may have heard of with Harvard. They're going to try to make use of it earlier by maybe September and whatnot. So it is still a long-term project, and we won't actually see the fruits of its benefits until still a while away. But the opportunity for the community to learn about what's going to happen and also provide an earlier input is something that is advantageous to all of us, right? Because we will then develop something that would be more mutually beneficial, and also yes, even though you won't, we'll have delayed gratification of when you actually make use of it. But so that is something that I feel like might still be an opportunity for everyone to pitch in and give their thoughts and know what's about to come. Because then when you guys are developing other features, or when you're talking to your customers, you have an idea of what's coming up so that you can start pitching it. Like Berkay, who's on our Open Edx team here, does a great job of talking about things that don't currently exist, but he knows what's coming up in the horizon, so it's a good marketing thing. So anyway, so that's one aspect. The other aspect about some parts of the community also being very behind on releases, I don't know. I mean, that's another conversation we can have. And I don't have a great story on that, and maybe Ned can chime in too. But like the frequency of our named releases and allowing people to be a little bit closer to master, for instance, if that helps. I don't know. I think that is definitely something that we can see what we can do to help with that. Yeah.
So Omar, do you have ideas of how an architecture Hangout could be adapted to help people run releases?
Honestly, no. Like this slag is something that I have no idea how to tackle actually. So.
I didn't understand.
Here, I can see that you're talking, but we can't understand.
Maybe he accidentally unmuted, so yeah.
Okay. As far for the topic of architectural discussion for people who are working on previous named releases, perhaps something that I know there's some effort in doing this, but getting a poll out to the community of what are the main named releases you're working on, and what are architectural issues or architectural topics that are of particular interest to you. And then from there, perhaps the architecture group can just kind of review them and then figure out, is there material that, we could kind of collaborate on that can help people better understand the challenges that they're facing, but also keep in mind what would be kind of the pathway to help people move along through the named releases to more recent and current named releases faster.
And so is the goal, so the last thing you mentioned was helping them move along faster, which sounds more like an operational concern than an architectural concern? Or are we talking about if you're going to be making code changes to an old release, you still need architectural help with how best to make those changes?
The latter. Because when you make architectural, your own architectural changes, into a named release, or if there's a particular feature that's in a previous named release that is not in a later one, then that binds you there. So it's kind of helping people understand the architecture to help them kind of move forward in the named releases.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
And I'm thinking, and along the lines of having the poll understands where the community is, and is there an area, or are there areas that we can help people understand the edX architecture better, where it might not be as well described. And I'll just point a simple example, well, not quite a simple, I'll point an example, is the module store returns student module with, so course descriptor with mix-ins. I'm trying to remember right, but basically there, and I was diving into there to try to understand how it was created, and I have some idea now, but so there's an area, of the architecture is where class definitions are dynamically created.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. And I like the idea of the poll. What do you guys think, Ned and Matt?
We can try it. If the question is, the problem is that the people who are on old releases are often the people who are least invested in doing other stuff like taking surveys. So, but yeah,
I mean, if we broaden it to not just really old releases, but just the community, what release are you on, and what are the architectural challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, or we could have the architecture hangout with the topic changing old releases, and when people show up, we ask them what release are you on, and then we know exactly what we need to talk about because they're the people. But
yeah, sounds good.
There are people out there facing architectural issues that edX engineers are not, because edX by definition is on master. And there are people still out there changing code and facing those kind of development challenges and could use some architectural help understanding how best to make it. Did I get that?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, Ned. I think the other part potentially is that, and I agree with you, somebody who's stuck on an old release for some reason, it might be operational, it might be architectural, it might just be capacity. But if someone's sitting here, let's say, we're not, but let's say in Cypress, there may be a reason. They may have really forked at Cypress, and now they're ending up sitting with something that feels like it's really far afield, and that the lift of getting up to the latest is just too hard. So they're just going to sit on this old version, and they essentially have a completely forked version of OpenEdX. Whereas it might be that through a few discussions, we could say, you know what, there's been some future architectural changes that would get you 85 to 90% of what you need, but those people aren't engaged in that discussion at all because they've already essentially checked out mentally out of keeping up with the latest because it's too far removed. We're just going to stay in this old version. I don't know how many there are, but I think to John's point, if we start asking, and I love the idea of doing that in the discussion, we might identify people in the community that are sleeping contributors.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I will also put it out there. It doesn't have to be edX that sends out this poll. I think this poll is actually a great idea. It is all about OpenEdX architecture. Are there any volunteers who want to, and we can help review it or put it together. Are there any volunteers who want to take the lead on that and maybe present that, the results of that survey and whatnot at a future Hangout?
I'll chew on that.
Okay.
Volunteer someone to do it?
Yeah.
Volunteer.
If only I had the power. But if not, I do still think it's a valuable thing, and edX will definitely take it on. I mean, but I do feel like it's also an opportunity for someone in the OpenEdX community to help lead this effort and push edX towards helping you guys, helping us help you. So.
Cool. I'm not going to do this in front of everyone, but I might be volunteering somebody. So
Okay, cool.
there's enough similar people here. We can figure something out, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good. So if by Tuesday though we don't have somebody, then we'll make something happen. But so if John, Aaron, others, try to see if you can get something by Tuesday.
Yeah, that might be a little too fast of a turnaround to come up with topics and do a survey and come up with topics, especially over the weekend.
No, just who that person could be that would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, we want to give enough time for people to submit this survey. So yes, no, it's just who are you volunteering? Okay, sounds good. So I'm gonna pause there, Ned. I had another agenda item to talk about the architecture roadmap and whatnot, but if there's time at the end of the other things, then I'll come back. Yeah.
All right, and just to close out this topic, so I mentioned that we have a bunch of Hangouts. So we're here now on the community Hangout. Namisha's been talking about what a new architectural Hangout would look like. And just to close the loop, we have the Ops Hangout, which is focused much more on operational deployment issues. And that's actually the longest running Hangouts. Our DevOps group has been doing that for I don't know how many years now. I think the next one of those, Matt, is next week.
Actually, it is next Tuesday next week. But it's
all right, but we'll figure it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so then maybe we'll do the architecture one. Yeah, you guys tell me when we're free.
So as you think about how Hangouts are useful to you, those are the three that we've got now in our kind of repeating schedule. And thoughts about how to divide up the audience and the topics are always welcome. Okay. Say a little thing.
It is. Can you hear me?
You have to speaker and
Speaker and speaker.
So you are unmuted.
You toggle the speaker.
It's just a Mac thing. Your Mac speaker.
Oh yeah, this one.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
So my request is a super high level general one.
For people who don't know you yet, Jeff.
Right. I'm Jeff Witt. I'm the accessibility specialist for Edx. And what that really means is
you don't have video. No one can see you. Okay.
Someone else is also on YouTube. Okay. So I'm Jeff Witt. I'm the accessibility specialist for Edx. And what that really means is all the platform issues come to me. But in the platform accessibility issue triage process, I bump into course accessibility issues with some regularity. And for multiple reasons, one of which is that it just doesn't scale. I can't handle those, meaning I can't go chasing down and fixing such. It's course accessibility is the course provider's responsibility, and platform accessibility is our responsibility. Having said that, though, I think it'd be cool and expedient if there were people who were specialists in this area who could help course providers, get to an accessible solution efficiently and quickly when they are putting things together, because it's the nature of this platform that it's really open-ended. You can put anything you want inside a course, and that means you can create lots of new and innovative dynamic things that break accessibility inadvertently. So if I could wave my magic wand, some of you in the open community would be kind of subcontractors or domain experts who would be the first line of defense for questions about accessibility for implementation of course content. And that would be because it's another layer of specialization in how to make interesting accessible solutions. Now, I can imagine that this question of what's in the platform and what's in the course is going to be ongoing forever, even if I could wave my magic wand that way. So I wonder if there needs to be a discussion forum for course providers or creators just about accessibility, or if we need to have a discussion there. Basically, how can I get us there, or is anybody interested in this? I would be happy to coach people who want to be this kind of domain expert how to get there, but I cannot go over the line and then get into individual course content with any kind of commitment that way. Just putting it out there, because there's a demand here that is not being met, and I'm afraid that it's just going to be a dangling issue for forever.
So other people on the call, do you have contacts with instructional teams that are addressing these sorts of issues, accessibility issues within the
you've just muted there.
Sorry, Matthew, what?
I muted you.
Yeah, we just lost you halfway through that because you were muted. But what I was going to say is I'm very much with you on that. I can't speak to how much work can go into it, but I've worked with a lot of accessibility stuff in the past. I wouldn't so much call myself an expert as I know some stuff. But I think the main thing is we need to, people like myself and the other CS guys at Appsembler, when we're training authors, we need to embed it into the training. And I think that's something that anyone who's working with course teams needs to do. So I think what would be helpful is one, I'm always lurking in the accessibility channel on Slack. I'm happy to jam on stuff there as well.
Okay.
But I think what we really need is an addition to the X series, or whatever it's called, Course Creator series on accessibility.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And also just anyone who is training authors, if there's anyone else here who does author training at their company, needs to be able to embed that into their training. If you're learning how to develop a course, you should be learning how to develop it accessibly. I feel very strongly about that. In much the same way as now, if you look on how people are learning to develop, if you look at like developer boot camps, they're building accessibility in from the start. They're not doing it as an add-on later.
Right.
And I think that's incredibly important, just as a soapbox.
So this content creator accessibility training, if you have thoughts on how it might be improved, I mean, I think I need to go around and do another revision because the web content accessibility guidelines 2.1 are out now, so the standards are moving target, you know. Another thought I had just for the pile here is, it occurs to me it might be helpful to have end-to-end testing specifically for courses that are narrowly focused on emulating users for people with disabilities, to do a bunch of accessibility assertions, basically. So, and that this might be modularized per X block, so we could provide a certain set of accessibility-related end-to-end tests for the core supported X blocks, and then you, the community, as you create new X blocks, could add to that so that we have kind of a accessibility learner bot. Does that make sense conceptually, or is it just too narrow?
Whether it's narrow or not, I think it sounds like an excellent starting point.
Okay. Well, I'll put these on the accessibility Slack channel, and if people want to step forward and say, I want to level up on this, I'm happy to help you. So.
Great. Yeah. Cool. Sounds like Jeff's got a new best friend. Okay, so what are we looking at now? Show and tell. So Omar, are you ready to show us and tell us? Can people hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, can't hear him, though.
Can't hear him, yeah.
Where are you?
Oh, here we go.
Omar is muted.
Where? That's good. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Double mute. All right. So I've been working lately with community members to introduce support for XBlocks internationalization. It is something that I was unaware of, that it wasn't really supported much, especially when it comes into like JavaScript and XBlocks. When you have like an XBlocks that has a JavaScript rendering and templating and so on, it doesn't really support JavaScript until only recently. It's a work that I've worked with folks from OpenCraft to support it. A couple of them I can't tell all of the names because there are so many. So this is the poll block if you've ever used it. As you can see, the worse it looks, the better. So the moment you start seeing those like weird characters, that means if this piece is internationalized, and this is something that provided by the Edx internationalization tool, which lets you do that instead of going to transifex back and forth. So this button here for the exit block, they're all translated. Those are just input, so I didn't bother doing them. So, but this one clearly is gibberish. So that's a good thing. So this is the same exit block. We can see here. We can see export results, view results. Whatever we try to do, it's internationalized. This is both JavaScript and HTML, and like this is the whole package. Whether it's Mako template or Jago template, or it's a JavaScript template or JavaScript code or Python code, the whole package is now internationalized. It took us a while to get there because the support weren't there, and we had to figure out how to do it. This pull request now merged upstream, and we have now another exit block, which is the done exit block. It's so simple, and too bad that I mean, like it added a lot of boilerplate to it to have the support. So this works right now. If you have it in Arabic and like in English and whatever language, it'll work. The button will automatically scale up and like get wide enough for the word to fit. Obviously, it has to fit for both of the words. So it like here we have a couple of space, but that's okay. We have the PDF exit block. It's a small one, but we don't want to like intimidate like international users, so we have to add support for it because it's currently used by one of our clients. Some of the exit blocks are now merged and available to the community. Some of them are pending review, such as the PDF exit block. And that's all I would like to show now. Any questions?
Yeah. So Omar, you mentioned that was merged into master.
So the master of the of the pull exit block, which is hosted, I think, in the OpenCraft organization. Yeah, that's as far as I remember.
But the infrastructure work that you had to do to make that possible, that's done in the XBlock repo, or you put it into each XBlock repo separately, or? So
yeah, there is one part that I think Jill from OpenCraft have already done and shipped with the XBlock. So I'm based on a lot of like my work on her contribution, and the other part is that it has to be built in within every XBlock. And Verdana, I'm not sure if I'm spelling his name correctly, from OpenCraft again. This is a tremendous effort, so you get to see a lot of people working on it. Have been adding this to the XBlock cookie cutter, so it can be available for all the future XBlocks, but the previous one has to be added manually. So it's both. In the platform, the work is already there, or it's actually platform agnostic. That's a good, like, I think it's a good thing about it. So most of the work is contained between the XBlock repo itself and the XBlock utils and the XBlock itself. So the release that you've just seen is Ficus, without much patching. It also works on Ginkgo, on the latest OpenEdX master.
Okay, so, great.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Omar about that before we jump to Robert? Okay. Okay, Robert, if you would.
Am I doing my speaker?
Your speaker, your microphone.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
We have to not be so backward.
Yeah. Now share. So I am Robert Poza on the architecture team here at Edx, and I'm going to be demoing our OAuth scopes work, which was contributed by Microsoft and worked on heavily by Misha here and Doug and possibly others. Misha, let me know if there's anyone else I should mention. But so I'm just going to do a very quick demo. I don't know, is everything large enough to read and see?
That's pretty good.
Okay, so this is pretty reasonably technical demo. What I'm starting with is a curl statement to get a JOT token, and then I will explain more about this as we go through. So what I just did is I got a JOT token, and here you can see the relevant scopes that are being asked for.
Can you give a little more background on what a JOT token is and what they're used for and what you just did?
No.
No?
No, sure, no, sure. So the JOT token is an access token. So the whole point of this is to add permissioning, which I was going to sort of reveal as I go, but is to add permissioning on top of some of our endpoints.
REST API.
Right.
Yeah.
So at one point there was no ability from the outside to make a request to, as an example, that I'll be getting to, like the grades API, you just wouldn't be able to get it. Now this is an authorization token that you can get by. I'll walk through sort of the details of this. You can see in the request that I made there was a client ID and a client secret. So there would be a way for an outside, as an example, someone from outside of Edx being able to set up a client ID with us and being able to have access for certain scopes to be able to make future requests to some of our endpoints. So as an example, Microsoft might want to be able to get their grades out and they could get scoped access to that. So here I'm just doing an example of getting one of these JOT access tokens, and that is scoped to read grades and to read certificates. And now what I'm going to do is, you can see over here, I've got a curl statement that's just asking for the grades on a particular course. Now I'm going to copy the access token that I got. And I am going to paste that into this URL and also this one. So this other one is just a request on our profile call. So first request I'm going to make is the grades call using that access token, and ta-da, we got a response that has information. So that means that person.
None of these accounts are real student accounts.
Right. I hope. And the second call I'm going to make is same access token to the user profile that is not set up to allow for these scopes. And it says you do not have permission to perform this action.
Nice.
Anything you want to add or any questions?
Any questions about what you just saw? I know we've moved very quickly from a top level to a low level. Omar's raising his hand. Omar, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, that's so great. Thanks, Robert. My question is, I mean, this is great. I have a lot of ideas because we are a heavy microsite user, and I would like to know how this can work with microsites. I can see that it works with courses, but what do you think?
How does it work with microsites?
So are you saying microsites within your OpenEdX instance?
Yeah, like currently, I believe it's now Django sites. This is the current new thing. Yeah, those things.
And are you thinking that you want to have different access for different microsites? Oh.
Yeah.
Or yeah, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if I can, for example, like easily using Jout or some other mechanism, provide one JWT token to the client for me, and he can only or she can only access those courses and those like grades and so on, everything that relates to this Django site.
Right. That's a very good question, and so let me tell you a little bit about where we're heading with this as well. I might give you some context. So Jot is a JSON web token, right? So it's a what and the curl statements that that Robert did here. These are the first one was against our OAuth endpoint. So we are using OAuth 2, right? That's our protocol and our standard for doing for getting these tokens, and what we're doing here with scopes is basically restricting what endpoints and application that receives a token can access. And what he demoed here was client credentials grant type, which is for server to server calls. Now, for you as microsites, I think if it's an administrator, for instance, who's accessing that microsite and you want to limit what that person can do, you'll probably use a different grant type. There you would probably use a grant type for specifically an authorization code grant type. So that's not server calls, but it's on behalf of the user. Now, where we're heading with all this, right, is that this Jot token, right, it's basic C4 encoded, so you can't see the contents of it right now on what Robert presented here. But like if you did decode that, you will see that it will have user information in it, encoded in it. So it will have what is the username of who this token belongs to, and it will also have what role does that user have. For us, we're doing things around enterprise, related things where we're probably going to expand the token to include what enterprise a person is affiliated with. Along those lines, I do think that yes, you can expand that Jot token and also specify what microsite that particular person is, associated with, or through which microsite this person is making this access. So I do see that yes, there is potential of doing that. We haven't written the OpenEdX proposal around this, but we are moving towards making these Jot tokens be not just for user identification as ID tokens, but also to embody, use that to envelope information around authorization. And any top level, high level, system level authorization, it does make sense to put them in the Jot tokens. For any access control that is specific to a microservice or very application specific, those would probably not be in the Jot tokens, because we want to keep those as small as possible. Anyway, I know I'm getting deeper and deeper in this, and I can keep going, but the one last thing to just say where we're heading with this is those Jot tokens, they're going to move around along with the user. So as a user goes from one, I'll just use a word, but like micro front end to another micro front end. So like from LMS to Studio to Insights to whatever different UI we have, the Jot token will follow that user along. And so this is our way of making it very simple to do authentication and authorization across microservices as we build more of those, and across micro front ends as we build more of those. Anyway, I said a lot there. I'm sure you guys might have questions, and these are definitely types of things we can dive deeper on our Hangout.
Says you should.
Okay.
He voluntold you.
Oh, he voluntold me. Yes. Okay. Fine. Sounds good.
Are there more questions about what Robert was talking about and before we show? Before we wrap up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm reading the chat here, and I'll just say that, yeah, the more voluntelling that happens across our, boundaries of, organization to organization, that's how we're gonna work together. So keep that going. So now we know what people need.
Yeah, so it's great to get that kind of feedback about what's an interesting topic here and what's helpful to you. So keep telling us those sorts of things. So we're almost at time here, and I thank everyone for joining. I don't think we had anything else on the agenda. We had to skip Nimisha's roadmap, architecture roadmap and update. Do you have 2 minutes you could say about any of it? Or
Yeah, I do, but is there anything? I can do that.
There's nothing else.
Okay.
But we only have a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Are you speaking, Ned? Because I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Otherwise, we've been sitting here in silence.
Silence is the best silence.
Okay, I got 4 minutes. No,
2 minutes.
My Apple Watch says 4 minutes.
I'm the moderator. I say you have 2 Someone else had a question.
Oh, someone has a question. Let's take that.
All right. So Felipe, why don't you give us your question before we see?
Okay, so we've been experiencing with Hawthorne lately for some customer projects, and we also created a complete stage environment just for that. And we saw that the honor code track enrollment was removed, which means there is no possibility to give free certificates anymore. The one option left in the OpenEdX platform without forking and modifying it is to use the professional no ID certificate, which has a limit, like a limit of, I don't know, price. It cannot go below $5. So I know I can tweak it. I can remove the commit that made honor code and the honor track unavailable, and I can lower the $5 limit to 0. But it seems overkill to have to go through e-commerce and actually install the service and do all that. If the only thing I want to do is give out free certificates, which is a big part of what some organizations use edX, OpenEdX for. So I'm wondering if we can, if I can open that discussion. Why was it removed? If it's a big part of the users for the open community, and if we can bring it back by our route.
Does anyone have specific information about that? No. So I don't know that we have any of the feature experts about that in the room, but I can say that I don't want it to be that tied to edx.org's current thoughts. So we should fix that by iron.
That's awesome.
And I will also say that if we don't have the feature experts here in the room, or I don't know, at edX, but like, does the community or edX have a proposal of how to make these modes pluggable or configurable? right? So that it doesn't have to be based on what, like that's Edx's business decisions. I mean, I think that's where we want to move towards, is that, we want to create this core platform that can then be configured. And that includes these back-end things, right? It's not just front end or whatever, but like these business decisions that we're making, things that we choose to, configure or enable here, but not necessarily elsewhere and all that. So, yeah. And I think it's because of the way that currently the code exists, where things are very intertwined and not as modular. This is probably why the engineering team that made that decision moved that way, because they thought it was simplifying code and removing things that we didn't need anymore here. But that's why, like, if we instead invest time in making things configurable, we wouldn't have needed to make that change.
Sure, and this is a great opportunity to bring back the honor code track while making it pluggable, so that whoever wants it, or it can be like the default can be open, but you guys decide to close it the other way around. I don't care. It's just
right. Yeah.
The fact that this was sort of removed, being such a big part of what the open community uses the platform for, was a bit unsettling.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think those of us in the room feel strongly that should have been something that you still had that flexibility, and we took that away from you, and that we shouldn't have done that.
Yay, let's fix it.
Yay, let's fix it.
The course mode default still exists, right?
The course mode still exists, but it doesn't allow you to give out certificates. Like, it has a specific if line that says if honor code, then no certificates, which is just one line. Again, I can just remove it and be on my way. But
Okay, yeah, that's a good thing to know about it. Thanks, Philip.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you. We will be having another one of these in 4 weeks or so. We'll open up an agenda page and put the information out there, and we look forward to seeing you all again then. See you all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.